Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, 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 and welcome to Talk Time with Terri and our guest, Gene Walker. Hello, Mr. Walker. How are you?
I'm well, Terry. It's good to see you, and I've been waiting for this conversation.
Yes, yes. I know the stuff kept getting our calendars. We kept
Yeah,
playing
yeah.
phone tag.
We made it happen, though. We made it
Yes,
happen.
yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gene Walker is running for a school board director in District 9. We will get into what communities they are while we're conversating. But for right now, if you have any questions, as always, please put them in the chat. We will do our best to make sure that Mr. Walker gets those. If we do not have time for Mr. Walker to answer all of the questions, I'll make sure that he will get your questions. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get started. So, how are you? How are you? How are you, Gene? Can I call you Gene?
You can, please. Mr. Walker's my dad, probably, or at least he was. But Gene is perfect. Thank you. No,
Okay,
I'm
good.
doing well. It's a fun time of year. Work is good. Family's good. We got lots of busy stuff on the school board to do, but this campaign is one of those things that we're working on. So I'm excited for the season.
Good, good. And thank you for gracing us because I know it's election, so I know it's busy time for you. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
If you don't have any questions, we can get started.
Let's go.
All right. So now you are the president, correct? Of
Correct. Yeah, I was a president in 2024 and then currently in 2025.
and what does that consist of?
So primarily, the president, has a role in setting meeting agendas, setting committees, and then we run, all of the public meetings. So agenda review, legislative, public hearing, and then we are generally the spokesperson for the board. So we'll be the one that generally will talk to the press and works most closely with the superintendent.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. Because I knew you was the president. I wasn't sure of what it
Yeah.
consisted of. So thank you so much for that.
Well, and then we
Um.
sign all the contracts. So our name is on all the money we spend.
Oh, okay. 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 And money. So let's talk about. Do I want to talk about money yet? No, I don't want to talk about money yet. I want to talk. I want to keep it light. I want to keep it light first. So what made you want to? Where's the passion coming from, Gene? To run for reelection again. Where's that coming from?
Yeah, so originally when I ran, we were looking at how do we transform and create a school district that works for kids, especially Black and Brown kids, because we know that our Black and Brown kids are not achieving to the levels that they could or should,
Hmm.
and so I got into it for that reason, and I want to continue for that reason because we haven't made the progress that we should, but we're making progress. And so there's just some really important work that we started over the last 14 to 16 months
Hmm.
we're coming kind of to a pinnacle of that work of really kind of transforming what we believe the district will look like. And I want to be a part of continuing that work and seeing it through
Yeah.
with the rest of my board colleagues.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'm not going to ask to go but what I'm hearing is you all have started some projects and you're almost to the end of the projects and you would like to make sure that you're there to see it finished out.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've started a process of kind of reforming our governance, work through the student outcomes focused governance that we're working with through the Council of the Great City Schools,
Hmm.
and we're in just about to start year two of that 2 year work
Hmm.
to kind of redefine the roles and responsibilities of the board and how that's different from the roles and responsibilities of the superintendent, which is a really key point. And then everybody knows that we've been working on the reconfiguration and possible consolidation of the district to get us to a place where we can actually achieve student outcomes. And that work is probably still 2 to 3 more years in the making as we go through the different steps. And I just feel like we're at the point where we need to keep pressing forward. And any major change in how the board looks has the potential of stalling that work and kind of pushing us backwards. And so
Yeah.
I want to keep pressing forward, and I want to be a part of that.
Yeah. So now I know, excuse me, I know that the board is ready to start having community conversations, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it came after there was outcry for to have conversation, right?
Sure.
And so I wanted to comment on that because I think it was immediately, the school board agreed and or heard the community. Let me say that the school board heard the community, and you got to respect that. You know what I'm saying? And so I wanted you to comment on that. What did you hear, and what did I know you had spoken about? You want to hear from the community exactly what do you want from us as the school board? What? Yeah. So give us a little bit of that, Jean, please.
Sure. Yeah. So, community outreach and engagement is probably the hardest part of our job because, we're working with 19,000 students and, another 25, 30,000 parents. And so really trying to figure out, what we're asking is pretty simple. We want to know, what do you want your kids to be able to know and do by the time they get through Pittsburgh Public Schools? And then what are the things that we should avoid, right? What are the guardrails we should put in place to ensure that we don't kind of cross the line as
Yeah.
we're trying to get your kids to where they want to go? So the real question is, like, what do you want us to do? What do you want from us as a school district? And then we should go back as a school board and a school district and devise a plan for how to get there, and then present that plan to the public
Mhm.
as the solution. And so, we're asking for the what and the why, and then we go back and do the, show the how, and that's really how it's supposed to work. The response was really strong. We had a bunch of public engagement around the facilities plan. The district always does surveys and things like that to try to get to folks. And this next round is really about how do we engage as a board with the community in a way that is meaningful, so that as change happens, people can see their ideas and their thoughts and their values in that change as we guide the superintendent, to implementing his vision.
Not just had a crazy idea, and this would be so hard because the school board, you're working a full job plus
Yep.
the school board, and then maybe the community, like a community monthly meeting or something. I don't know. That's something just
Yeah, I think as individual school board members, we have the ability to kind of tap into our communities and be a part of those. And so I'm regularly at the Wind Gap community meeting. I'm regularly at the Brighton Heights meeting, and then any other community that's in my district. If I get an invitation, I'll be there. I'll be at the Easter egg hunt in a couple of weeks, or actually, I think
I think it's
next
the
week.
Sunday. Is it Sunday?
Is it this Sunday?
Is it
It's on my
tomorrow?
calendar.
I think it's I think it's tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow. But yes, see, that's what I'm
No,
talking about. Is it
it's
tomorrow?
next Saturday. Next
Oh,
Saturday, the 19th. Yeah,
okay.
so I think we have an opportunity. There are lots of ways to engage with the board. We have the public hearings, we have community surveys, we have these community meetings. The most effective, in my opinion, is when you're able to call your school board member and say, "Hey, can you take 30 minutes and have a conversation with me?" That one-on-one interaction is really important. And then when we can come to these community events where we can talk to groups of people at a time.
Yeah.
That's really important. And during the early parts of the campaign, like I was going to school buses stops in the morning because I knew that's where parents were going to be, and they were more than happy to kind of surround me and ask questions and push me in different ways. And so that's what makes this process really really cool and really interesting.
Mhm.
And that's what democracy is about. Really, it's about
Yeah.
involving the public in the process, and then hopefully letting them see their ideas and thoughts come to life through the work that we're doing.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that. Now, let me ask you, what are your thoughts on addressing a budget constraints on funding? the funding issues and how. Yeah. So what is the board, or what is your idea or opinion on addressing the constraints of the budget?
Yeah, so I think there are a number of things. There are a number of kind of pieces that need to come into place for us to be able to get our budget into a place where it can be effective and efficient. The first, like with any budget, we have to look at where's our money coming from and can we increase that amount of money? And then how are we spending our money and what are the ways that we can cut spending that is not detrimental to the actual education of kids. And
Mhm.
so if we look on the revenue side, one of the areas that we've been pushing really hard is trying to get a tax, property tax reassessment done
Mhm.
throughout the county. And it's not just a Pittsburgh Public Schools issue; it is a every school district issue because it's been 15 years since
Yeah.
properties have been reassessed. What that does is, anytime you buy a property, like you were going to pay full taxes. But if you bought your house like I did, 13 years ago, my taxes are the same today as they were
Mhm.
13 years
Mhm.
ago.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
and,
Mhm.
if my house has gone up in value, then personally I'm winning, but the
Yeah.
system is losing.
Yeah.
If my property has gone down in value, the system is winning and I'm losing, right? And so
Yeah.
reassessment levels the playing field. The other thing it does is it really prevents the large property owners, the folks that own
Mhm.
the multi-million, billion-dollar
Yeah.
buildings, from using their legal services to us to um, appeal their taxes. And so last year, Pittsburgh Public Schools sent $17 million back to these big corporations who
Mm.
have these buildings downtown who are saying they're not worth as much. And so we're getting kind of beat up on both ends.
Yeah.
The other area, we have to look at federal funding and state funding, and we know what's happening at the Federal Department of Education, that is making things very hard. And then, we look at the city. The city has been getting 0.25% of our earned income tax for the last 20 years. And what started out as an $8 million give to the city has turned into a $26 million give to the city.
Mm.
And so imagine what we could do, uh, you know, and I will say that the state gives us the first $8 million back. They kind of made us even on that first 8 million. But
Mhm.
imagine what we could do with an extra $18 million in our
Yeah.
budget. It would almost eliminate our deficit. And so when you put all these pieces together, um, tax reassessments, working with the city to get money back, potentially, some increases in taxes for folks, even though I know that's not fun. It all kind of feeds into it.
Yeah.
Now, the really good part, well, the interesting part about tax reassessment is there is a rule on the books that says that, even if there's a reassessment, no taxing body can get a windfall of money from that. So if your taxes, they will go up slowly over time.
Mhm.
And it's not like you're reassessed and next year your taxes are going to double and that goes to the city. Like we're not allowed to do that.
I'm glad
So there are some protections for homeowners and property owners through that process. But for some reason, county executives don't like to do it because it feels like you're raising people's taxes.
Mhm.
But it's just the natural of order of things, right? As
Yeah.
properties tax values go up, taxes should follow.
Yeah.
And all of that feeds into the system to help all of our services, not just schools, but public safety, police, fire,
Yeah.
EMS, like all of that stuff's affected.
And I have to comment on the property assessment. We have to get we it shows in our schools with the
Mhm.
resources that our schools have that we have not had a property assessment. And
Yes, and there's
you
a reliability in that income, right? There's a as the chief financial officer goes to make our budget, he has to estimate or guess how much revenue we're going to get. And when you don't have a tax reassessment and you know that there's going to be, 1,500 appeals every year, it's really hard to estimate and predict how much of that revenue is going to come. And for the last couple of years, we've estimated and then have had to give some of that back to property owners, big and small. So it's really it's a struggle.
yeah. And so, or do you believe that this is one of the main sources or one of the pieces of the puzzle, as you were speaking of, that needs to be addressed, like ASA, like yesterday?
Yeah, I believe it is. I think it's, with the understanding that a full tax reassessment for a county takes 3 to 4 years. It is one of those things that ideally would be done on a recurring basis and automatic. So you take the politics out of it, and it's just
Yeah,
something that happens, and everybody knows. And as a homeowner, you can predict how that's going to impact you in a couple of years,
yeah,
knowing that your reassessment is going to happen periodically. So I agree, it needs to happen for the stability of all of the taxing bodies to be able to, um, effectively put budgets together and provide the services that everybody depends on.
thank you so much for that. I'm glad that that we talked about that, because I want our audience, I want the audience to understand the importance of the lack of in our schools, and
Hmm.
all the pieces of why that is. Not just one piece or one person, or it's the pieces, as you were talking earlier, Gene.
Yeah,
So
and the last piece that has to come into play, because Pittsburgh Public Schools has a ton of, like, we have a lot of money. We get, you know, $750 million
mhm,
to run schools. And so the last piece that we have to look at that we've started working on is how are we using that money inside our organization,
mhm,
and can we do it more effectively and more efficiently? And right now, we're operating 54 school buildings.
mhm,
We should probably only have 35 to 40 based off of the number of students that we have.
mhm,
And just like every one of those extra school buildings is probably $500,000 of expense minimum. And so when you're talking about 10, potentially 10 buildings, you're talking about $5 million that can be reallocated to provide uh, better supports, better education across the board. And
mhm,
it's not a popular thing to talk about at all.
mhm,
But
mhm,
when you have 19,000 students, you just can't have schools that are so small that you can't afford to put, teachers, algebra teachers or phys ed teachers or nurses or librarians.
yeah.
And right now, there are schools, even some of our better, higher performing schools, that are struggling under the weight of being stretched too thin. And so our job is really to pull that in tighter so that we can provide better for our kids.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much. Um, well, I already asked you that one. Um, the community schools. What is your vision for the to strengthen? Or first, this is a two-parter. Are there community schools? We have five community schools, correct? Or
I
is
believe you're right.
yeah?
I can't name them. I know that Langley is one.
Hmm. We have
There are
five.
several others. Yes.
I have it written down somewhere. There's five, and
Okay.
uh, would you know if they are on the list of closing, or will the community schools stay put, and or if there like less students in there, or you all talking about those schools as well? And if so,
Yeah.
what does that look like for the
Yeah.
community?
So I would have to pull the list of the schools that are actually like designated as community schools outside of Langley. Um,
Langley,
so
Alder, I got them.
Well, essentially, the idea is, what we want to do as we go through this process is, even if we close a building, what we don't want to do is take away resources,
Hmm.
and resources and programs, and so we can, even if we, let's assume one of the couple of schools on the north side that are kind of on the list are designated as a community school, we can take that program, not only just the academic program, but the community school program, and then transplant it into the newly formed school that will have more kids and more resources and more opportunities, and continue that work. And then actually, the problem that we've had over the years is actually funding community schools in the way that actually makes them effective. And so all of those things are a result of, having too many school buildings, not enough students, declining enrollment, not enough staff. Um, and I think as we look to reimagine what schools look like in our communities, it becomes about the superintendent and his team going out and building those partnerships with those critical partners to come into our schools. So it could be a dentist or a doctor or maybe a food pantry, or because we know in the West End, you guys don't have a grocery store over there. Like, you have to
Correct.
leave your community to go get groceries.
Correct.
Um, and so what we're trying to do is figure out, like, how do we put the most amount of resources into the building with kind of that critical mass of students that allows us to resource it in the way that it's supposed to. And so even if a school that's designated community school, that building closes, that doesn't mean that the program ends. It just means it's going to shift and then provide actually for more kids and more families.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that, because that was a question someone had asked, what will happen to the community schools? So thank you so much for that. Is the board for the right now, for nonviolence, the schools are not suspending from pre-K to second grade, I do believe.
It might be third grade, but second grade sounds right.
Okay. What is the board talking about, or expanding that to a higher grade for nonviolence, non-suspensions, or is that conversation on the table?
You know what? It's not actively being talked about, but it will, because we do have to go through the student code of conduct on an annual basis, and I don't recall when that is. It's coming up soon, though. And so I'm sure that discussion will happen. The interesting thing about school discipline is, we hear from the community about what they want, but then we hear from the folks that are in the buildings, and sometimes those wants don't match. And so, the folks inside of our buildings are saying we need to be able to hold our students accountable, even for these smaller infractions, because right now we can't. And kids are smart, right? Kids know that if I can call my teacher, out of his or her name, and it's not going to do anything, then I'm just going to keep doing it. So I think there has to be a way to provide our schools, administrators, and teachers with the tools necessary to maintain safety and high quality education without jeopardizing the ability of keeping kids in school. And so that is a really fine line. Now, with our littlest kids, right, there's no reason to suspend a kindergarten, first or second grader. Like, there's nothing they can do that should rise to the level of you saying, I can't handle this little person. I know they can be difficult, but it gets a little more tricky as the kids get older, and they, you walk into a building and now the kids are twice your size and twice as strong. And, I was that little kid when I started high school, and then I grew very quickly. And, people look at you different when you're 6'2", 200 pounds, So I think it'll be a discussion, just like it has been around, the use of summary citations. We've significantly changed, weapons policies and definitions over time.
What did you change? Tell us the weapons policy.
Yeah, so we really took a close look at the definition of a weapon and how that was treated. So, for 3 years ago, you got the same punishment if you came in with a Nerf gun as you did if you came in with a real gun. We looked at, there were times when, several years ago, where kids, if they stabbed you with a pencil, you were getting suspended like you had a weapon. And so we had to look at, like, what is the primary use of the object and its intended purpose, and, versus what you could use it for. And so we made some of those changes that, we frown upon, obviously, kids, coming in with Nerf guns, but we're not suspending them and sending them to the police. We've changed, we had to look at different things. So scissors were once considered a weapon, but, kids sew and knit and crochet and that kind of stuff. And so we just had to think differently. And so that whole policy was revamped to make it much more clear And if you look at it and say that's definitely a weapon, then it should be treated that way. If you look at it and say, well, yeah, I can hurt you with it, but it's not intended to be a weapon, then you're not treated. You're not, punished in the same way.
Okay. Okay. Couple more questions. Before I let you go.
And I talk a lot. I'm sorry.
No, please, no. My one question is, now I know your colleague Devin was very concerned after COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So can you share with us now at the beginning when when the COVID was over, she was very concerned of the mental capacity of and when the first report card came out after
Yeah.
COVID. Has that improved? Can you tell us, from after COVID, have our children's mannerisms, their learning ability, and also taking in information, has that improved?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would have to ask the superintendent, like specifically for that kind of data.
Okay.
I think my sense, just from having kids of my own who went through COVID, they're adults now, but I think there is a block of students, who at the time of COVID were in that second, third, fourth grade area, who I think who are now probably closer to high school, who are probably still struggling with that loss of time, that loss of interaction. I think we see it in social skills, because those are formative years for our young people. I think we're seeing a lot of hope and improvement in our upcoming K-5 kids who were still babies during COVID. So you kind of have three segments. You have the kids who were mostly fully kind of who they were when COVID hit, but those kids that were in those formative years, first, second, third, maybe fourth grade, when they lost that schooling and that time, I think they're the ones right now that are in early high school that are probably still trying to figure it all out. But that is a fascinating question that I should ask the superintendent if there's any kind of data around how that's going.
Please do.
But the mental health piece continues to be a challenge across the board, not just for students, but for adults. Because COVID was one of those rare things that we experienced together, but very individually, right? Wow. And if we didn't deal with it, everything tried to deal with it collectively. Like masks were collectives, testing was collective, but how I personally dealt with COVID is going to be very different than your experience in the outcomes, and so. Dealing with that's going to continue to be something that we work with, and there still aren't enough counselors and therapists available, because it's not just our kids that needed it. It's every kid from the other 42 school districts in Allegheny County, and we're stretching those poor folks as far as we can too to make sure that we stay sane.
Yeah. Thank you for that, because I often think about that, and I haven't seen Devin to ask her, does she have data? But two more questions. My next question is, why you?
Yeah, that's probably the $1 million question. I think for me the answer is pretty simple. I have been doing the job now for almost 4 years, and doing it as effectively and efficiently as I can. This job is really hard. There is a 12 to 18 month learning curve when you get started. And so, because of my belief that we don't have time to slow down, we don't have time in this moment to change and teach someone how to do the job that I already know how to do and have been doing really well. And so I think that, people that know me know that I'm straightforward. I'm honest. I'm going to tell it like it is, even if they don't like it. And I'm going to stick to what I believe is right and always decide to do what I believe is right, regardless of public opinion about that. And I think that's what we need in our folks in this type of leadership. And then, the last piece is, I work really well with the superintendent and I work really well with my colleagues on the board. And the board that we have today is significantly more functional than the board that I came onto 4 years ago. And I think we have an opportunity to only get better. And when I'm not school board member anymore, my hope is that I've left it in a place where the next person that comes behind me can jump right in and not need that kind of time to ramp up to figure out how to be good at this job. So that's why me.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And wait. I do got one more question. You're District 9. What communities does that consist of?
So District 9 is so the upper part of the north side. So Riverview, Brighton Heights, Observatory Hill, Summer Hill. I'm going to miss a couple of the communities up here, but pretty much everything north of Marshall Avenue, to the north, and then all of the communities in the West End. So Westwood, Sheridan, Chartier Heights, Chartiers, Wind Gap.
Yeah. So you don't have to name all.
There's a lot of them over there. But
over here.
So if you identify as a West Ender, I'm your guy. If you're an Upper North Sider, I'm your guy.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Gene, before we call it this evening, there may be someone have questions to ask you that we did not discuss, or they may want to volunteer. They may want to talk to you about something altogether different. How can somebody get in touch with you?
Yeah, so the easiest way, you can either get me on my school board email, which is gwalker1@pghschools.org. You can catch me on Facebook, Gene Walker for District 9, and shoot me a message. Or you can go to my website, which is Gene Walker for District 9, the number 9.org. And then you can sign up to get more information or find out how to reach me. But if you Google Gene Walker, Facebook, Pittsburgh Public Schools, you should be able to find me. And I respond best to email and direct messages on Facebook. I don't generally respond to comments in posts on Facebook because that gets you. That's a rabbit hole I don't want to go down half the time.
Okay. So before we call it the night, is there anything that you would like to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think, this election, just like all of them, is really important, and school board is just a part of that, but it's a critical part. Local politics is what affects our families the most, and having strong leadership in those local places will mean the most for you in the long run. And the one thing that I tell folks is by the time you hear it on network news, it's probably already a problem in your area. So why not let's just deal with it at home on the ground. And I'm ready and willing to continue to be a part of that with you as we try to make sure that all of our kids have the highest quality education they can get. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Gene Walker, a candidate for school board director. Thank you for coming this evening. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining. And please come back with Talk Time with Terri. And with that, we're going to say good night. Good night, everyone.